Hey everyone, I'm Nic LaRue. Welcome to Film Snobbery Live. We have another great episode for everyone coming up this evening. I'm really excited actually. This is going to be kind of like our film festival episode. Um, uh, it's wonderful that we have a lot of fantastic filmmakers on the show all the time. We have people from all different walks of life here in disciplines in the industry. Last week we had again the prolific and great Ira Deutschman on the show. Next week we have Amy Vorpal is going to be on the show. I think I mistakenly said she was going to be on this week. I think I messed that up, but that's what editing is for. So it'll be great because we'll get to talk to her a lot about like the behind the scenes of like web series type of stuff and web content, and also her life as an actress. But today, for this episode, we actually have, like I said, this is the film festival episode, and who are we going to have on? Who best to have on a film festival episode than the film festival doctor? So we have Dr. Rebekah Louisa Smith, who's going to be on the show. We're going to introduce her in just a moment, and we're going to talk about her consulting that she does for filmmakers entering into the festival world with their films. We're going to talk about a little bit about her book and just a little bit about also some of the things that go into film festivals, whether it's the high emotional energy that goes into that, or the we might talk about imposter syndrome. We might talk about a lot of things. I might actually get a nice little free therapy session out of this. It might be great. So we're gonna bring her on, and ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Dr. Rebekah Louisa Smith. Hello, there she is.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yes, it's getting really, really warm here in Dallas where I'm based. So right now I've got my my flowery cardigan on, but today I was in the shorts and t-shirts.
I'm looking forward. I have some festival travel coming soon. I'm from the Northeast up in Massachusetts. We still have some snow on the ground. We have more coming next week.
Oh,
But I have two festival appearances coming up in the next couple of months. I have South Georgia and I have Jacksonville, Florida. And I'm looking forward to breaking out the t-shirts and stuff like that because
oh
I
yeah.
am a larger man and I feel more comfortable in that kind of attire than bundled up. But I will say, after living in LA for a while, I could not imagine how much, like, I found myself missing snow and, like, just regular
Really?
seasons. Yeah. Yeah. And my
Missing
wife,
snow. God, that's the first. I never ever missed snow in my whole life because for me, I just find snow is like dangerous because it might go into black ice.
yeah.
So I go over the top, like, ah.
No, you know what? And my wife is from California, so for
Oh,
her, like this is we've lived here a couple of years now, but it's weird because it's almost like the second year that she lived here. It's like she forgot about the first year a little bit. Like, oh yeah, right. Like this is slippery and wet and cold, and this why do we live here again? Oh, it's because we bought a house. So yeah, no, but she's gotten more used to it, and I think she kind of does go with the kind of the feeling of the seasons and stuff like that a little bit better now. Especially after being raised in California, she was like raised in what is ostensibly the desert. So I
oh,
think that
okay.
it's
So
definitely
she's not used to snow. My
no,
God.
it's definitely extreme. She might be used to a little bit of cold, but not this. So, but we also have
No.
a husky. We have a big husky dog,
Oh,
and so for us, like having that for the snow, at least it's good for Instagram. Um,
well, I mean,
so
a husky in snow is absolutely beautiful.
yes,
So that is definitely, I'd be on the Instagram and just like the pictures and save them. So,
yes, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about yourself and how you came to want to even work in the film industry because I'm detecting by a little bit of an accent, aren't
yeah.
from around these parts. Uh, but
No.
yeah, tell me a little bit about what it was like, getting into the industry over there because I kind of know your work a little bit from. I'm very familiar with the Abattoir Film Festival because we got started right around the same time. I started in 2008, 2009,
Right.
and I was Abattoir was actually one of the first UK based
Hmm.
festivals I really became familiar with.
Ah, small world. Well, yeah, well, that's where I began my career in the film world was thanks to the Abattoir Horror Festival. So it all came by accident. I did not think I would ever be running my own company as a festival strategist and called the film festival doctor. I thought my career was going to be in academia and researching that kind of role. everyone said I should do academia, but I didn't know if I really wanted to. But I thought, well, I can do it and I kind of enjoy it. So maybe it is what I should be doing. So I thought, I mean, I'm going to go move to Wales from Worcestershire, UK, move to Wales where this supervisor was based. And then it was about a year into doing the PhD. A friend of mine who is Gaz Bailey, who was the director of the Festival of Abattoir and runs the theatre and the cinema over there. He said he was looking for a bit of help because he'd been asked to put on a film festival, a horror film festival, because there was no horror festival in Wales at that time.
Hmm.
And they wanted to put it in Aberystwyth in Wales because it was a student town, a nice theatre. People could travel from other parts of Wales to that place, but also just to get like more, maybe more students to come to the theatre because students like horror. And also because there's a gap in the market. And I said,
Totally.
yes, why not? It'll be a nice, happy distraction because the PhD is pretty isolating. I mean, you've got like a good support group with you, but it's a pretty isolating process because it's very, solitary and you have a one-to-one with supervisor, but it's quite heavy going. So I wanted to get some, a bit of like a different change of scenery and more people. And I thought this would be really fun. And it was fun to the point where I realized this is what I want to be doing for my career.
Hmm.
I really want to be working in the world of film festivals. I love producing it. I love meeting the guests, organizing the whole festival and the programming. It was so like I was in my element and I felt more alive. It was like I found my why. This is my why. But it wasn't until I got speaking to filmmakers that made it really clear what my why was and what I needed to really pursue.
Hmm.
So I asked filmmakers what they liked and disliked about film festivals. And they all said the same thing. We love film festivals. It's great to see our film on the big screen, meet people, get drunk, win awards, have fun, and just travel with it around the world.
Hmm.
But we actually don't know who to ask to get our films into festivals or what to do or how to create a strategy.
Hmm.
We're just going on without a box, but that was going up back in the day and
I remember
see what
that.
happens. Just hope for the best. I was like, wow, there's a massive gap here. There's no one does it. I thought there must be someone that does it. And me and my friend Colin, he said, "Oh, let's look on Google." Because that was back in the day, you weren't using Facebook, Instagram. Well, that was, I don't know if Instagram was there, but Twitter and LinkedIn in the same way as you do now for businesses. It was pretty much Google. So we're like, let's look on Google. So it's on Google, and there was one company doing it. It doesn't do it anymore, but he had a good little model for me to build. So then I did. I thought I'm going to make this work, and it was hard because I didn't have any business skills. But I moved from Wales after I finished the PhD to London and got it off the ground with blood, sweat, and tears. And I remember when I was thinking of the name, I was going to call it the Film Doctor.
Hmm.
And then a friend of mine who gave me some feedback on the business plan that I put together, he said, I don't like that name. I said, well, I do. And he said, well, there's a blog, there was a blog at the time called The Film Doctor. So I would be careful. So I was like, But I was like, no, there's something here. So I slept on it. And then the next day I was like, oh, the Film Festival Doctor.
Yeah.
That's what it needs to be. So I told him and he was like, that's much better. So then we started working the branding and then it all came together slowly but surely.
Yeah. No, you definitely work. You don't go to school for that many years and earn any type of doctorate to not want to have it somewhere in your either your moniker
Exactly.
or your business name, right? Like, it's
Exactly.
the old Doctor Evil thing from Austin Powers, where he's like, I didn't go to evil medical school for 8 years to be called Mister.
Yeah,
Um,
it's similar thing. So I was
yeah.
like, no, no, this is going to be because what I'm doing is I'm helping people. Like doctors do get the films to festivals. So that's what people have a problem. They don't know what festivals to submit to,
Yeah.
how to do a strategy. So they come to the doctor.
Do you have so outside of Abattoir? Because I think your first festival is always your favorite, at least like in here, right?
Yeah.
What do you have a favorite film festival that you've been to? And it doesn't even have to be like Cannes or Sundance or something like that. But like, do you have like a favorite festival just like for you personally?
Yeah, so you're right. Like Abattoir is the best festival without a doubt. I love it so much, and it's growing and growing. It doesn't have maybe loads of money each year, but it certainly keeps growing in terms of popularity, which I'm really proud of the guys that are there. Yeah, that would be the Sedona Film Festival.
Yeah.
Um, that's a really, really great festival. Patrick that runs it and his team are wonderful. The place is very interesting.
Hmm.
But networking is great, and it just feels like a home from home kind of festival, I call it. So
Yeah.
you feel like you're, with friends and family in a good, safe space, that kind
Yeah.
of thing. And
I've
it's
never heard a filmmaker say a bad word about Sedona, and as for as long as I've
right.
been in the industry, they all consistently said that that is one of their top festivals. So that's good to
Oh God,
hear.
yeah.
Yeah, because I I'm hoping to go there this year or next year myself. I had never been able to make it down. Even living in LA, you would think like it's just right there, like
Yeah,
just go over
it's
a little bit, but I hadn't did never had the time. I'm hoping in the next. I have an excuse this year. My excuse this year and next is I have a book coming out, so I'm doing my strategy is I'm working with festivals to say you bring me out, I'll do workshops, I'll interview your filmmakers, I'll do, we'll partner up and we'll do some stuff. So that's kind of my pitch to them, and so far so good. I've had a good amount of festivals that have been interested, so that's nice. Especially when it's like I don't need to make money off of that stuff. I just want to be there, and that's what the book is for. So
exactly.
but
Oh,
on it,
cool.
yeah, but it gives me a better opportunity also to talk with more filmmakers and to work with the festivals to expand what they're doing, offer a little bit of value there.
Exactly.
So when you first got started doing the festival doctor, what were your initial hopes and dreams for that business, and where are they now? Like how far into the business plan are you to the point where you're like, I almost have to write a new plan now because we've exceeded or met these particular metrics or goals that we already had.
It's kind of a good point you say that. It's now like write a new business plan because it's growing and expanding. But one of the things I remember, actually, good you say that. I remember one of the things I wrote on my original business plan was I want this service to go from being perceived as a luxury service for filmmakers to an essential component and compulsory part
Hmm.
of a filmmaker's distribution plan. And that is getting there pretty quickly because it's now at one point when I first started up, people were like, oh, well, maybe have to work for free at the beginning because no one knows what this is. Like, if you said you were a sales agent, people would understand that.
Right.
If you were a producer, if you were a distribution company, but then you're not. So you have to really make this clear to people what you're doing and to prove it works. You got to work for free in the beginning, which I did. And then it just had to, shows this model can work. And it was always like tweaking the model as I went along, tweaking here and there to make it all, to get to where it needed to be.
Right.
So it was really interesting you say that because now people are realizing that it's really important to strategize before you do any festival submissions. Because it
Mhm.
is like a lot of festivals out there, but you need to know where your film fits in the circuit, who's going to want it, who's going to have some interest in it. It's
I
quite a complex process.
Yeah, no, and I think that process has evolved, especially since the pandemic, where so many film festivals took such a hit financially that
Yeah.
now I feel like they need to be a little more selective, or they feel they need to be a little more selective because it's really about bringing those eyeballs back in and retraining them almost to come back to this yearly event or however long. Some people do things more than once a year, but stuff like that. I get it. I mean, there were so many festivals that were just like we can't do it anymore, or that went virtual or whatever. So things have evolved to a point where now I think that they are being a little bit more selective as to what's going in. And that's not across the board, obviously, but yeah, I get that, and the idea of a boutique service, or becoming more of a less of a luxury, more of an economy service, and not to downgrade anything. It's more of the idea of like we need to make this affordable for people because festival. It's the thing I hear from filmmakers when I'm on the festival circuit interviewing people is everyone says the things I hate the most, the words I hate the most. Um, I put every penny on the screen, and I'm like, where's your marketing?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because that's my business. My business is marketing, and
Yeah.
that's what my book is about, and that's all that kind of stuff. So um I see a lot of what filmmakers are doing, and I'm like, okay, but what is your marketing budget? Most of the filmmakers I even talk to, I ask them were things like, do you have a marketing strategy, festival strategy, something like that? Do you have a business plan? I mean, ostensibly you're running a production company, you're running a business. So,
Yes.
what is your plan here to make money? Like businesses make money. You can make art, but let's also make this sustainable for you as a career because I want to see you make a second movie, a third movie. What are some of the questions that you ask filmmakers first when you meet them? When you're thinking, hey, I might want to work with these folks, or they approach you and say, we're thinking of working with you. What are some of the first questions that you ask to see if the filmmaker is going to be a right fit?
First thing I always ask are, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve on the festival circuit with the film?
Hmm.
So I'd have seen the film by this point. So we have to make sure we're in alignment. So if they were to say, something simple like, I just want people to see it, get exposure, and get distribution, great. If not, then not. But just to get people to see it because we've made a lot of effort to make this film get
Hmm.
completed. If they say we want to do the BAFTA, Oscar, BIFA qualifying festivals, but the film will be a difficult sell, that's when we have to make the decision of, right, are you happy for smaller but still good festivals? Or if you're just set on those, then there's no need to move forwards with it. So
Right.
I have to make sure that the client is in alignment with the strength of the film and what they can actually get out of it realistically.
Hmm.
Because some people might say, well, you never know, we can just submit and see, but that's not a strategy.
No.
It needs to be very targeted, especially with the crowded market that we're in. So if they're open to, if the film isn't going to be getting the festivals that they want, but they're open to different ones, that's a good start.
Hmm.
But if they are very fixed on one thing, then it's going to be hard for them. If they just want to keep seeing results, but they won't get it, it's not going to be worth the investment. I had a client I work with right now, they had a new film. And they went, do you think you can do Oscar qualifiers? And I said, it's going to be really hard. Maybe one or two, but it's going to be very hard. And I said, because they're the ones that are very competitive, it's going to be really tough. So it's going to be more money to put into fees that we won't get the money back for and no selections. They're like, okay, that's fine. We're going to stop post-production, just do something else, another project that's going to have a stronger script, which is great because that means they need to then help them move forwards.
And what part of the production process would you prefer to get involved at? Like while they're still in production to make sure that they have whatever assets and whatever they might need as they get into that festival strategy, or or to give any sort of advice or give any sort of advising, ahead of that, or are you cool coming in just like, okay, we have this movie, it's in the can, it's ready to go, and we just need to know where we are want to premiere at.
So I like to come on board at any stage of the process. Ideally, the best time is in development when you're at script stage and you're doing raising the finance, trying to get the funding.
Hmm.
That's a really good time. But sometimes, though, I think most of the time I do come on board when it's in, say, finishing post production, when they start thinking about film festivals, which is fine. But sometimes it can be, oh, we've got no money to do any festivals or marketing and PR because I realize it costs more than what they think. Some
Right.
people can, some people can't, just depends. But any stage is fine, but it's just really good in the beginning because that way you factor in all those unforeseen costs that sometimes pop up when you're halfway through the festival run, like an SRT file or a DCP, and like, oh, I've not got the money for that. But then when you put in the budget early, you can then afford to do it with no issue.
Yeah. And I was actually going to ask, what are some of the kind of the gotchas that filmmakers tend to not be aware of when it financially when it comes to that? I mean, is it? I mean, you mentioned a couple of them, like the captioning files, SRT files, the DCPs, maybe even the cost of a publicist, if
Yeah.
that is a route they're gonna go with. What are some of the other gotchas that you can kind of point out? The reason why I ask is also a lot of the biggest things that I see with filmmakers year over year is that I saw it at coming off of some of the comments coming off of Sundance this year too, which was just like, oh, there's just this lack of education, and I'm like, we're right here. Like we
Yeah.
have, you and I specifically have been here since the late 2000s.
Yeah.
And so it's what the idea of like, okay, well, and we both know Google exists. That's how we,
Yeah.
that. So yeah, what are some of those educational gotchas that these filmmakers don't seem to have been prepared for?
Well, it's definitely those items that you mentioned, but also one which now is becoming a bit of a gotcha is a lot of festivals are requesting closed captions. And
Interesting. Yeah.
that obviously is another expense. And also sometimes when it comes to promotion, and some filmmakers don't always realize or misjudge that you need to bring your own like postcards with details of the film screening. You
Hmm.
also need to bring potentially your own easel to display your poster,
Yep.
and those things cost. Also, getting a poster printed out is going to be more money than just sending it on a PDF. So these little gotchas can be, well, closed captions because it's becoming more frequent now to have closed captions. And it's not always compulsory, but the festivals are starting to want it to be a bit more compulsory because it's important to accommodate deaf and hard of hearing.
Well, also
Um,
if you're gonna go on to any sort of distribution, it's gonna be part of your deliverables anyway.
yeah,
So you might as well
exactly.
just do it up front.
Exactly. And also a poster's a funny one because not a lot of filmmakers sometimes think you don't need a poster for a short, but you do.
Hmm.
So it
You
is
also need a
important to have,
trailer. Uh,
yeah, a trailer too for short and feature, but especially like it's obvious with the feature, but it is compulsory now with a short because there are some festivals who'll say, your film freeway page hasn't been up to date. So can you add on a trailer and poster? You're like, do I need a trailer and poster? Yes.
yeah.
So it is important. It is
Well,
very important.
and I have one of my biggest pet peeves on my website, and this is purely a me thing because I also have OCD, is whenever I get short films, it happens more than likely with short films, or more often with short films, where I don't get a poster included with all the stuff, and I can't find a graphic online on my own to use in place of a poster, and so they'll send me stills, and I'm like, yes, your stills are formatted like this, but the posters are supposed to sit like this. So
Yeah.
now I have this weird, funky looking page that is going to sit there until I have written enough reviews to make it go to the next page, and I don't have to actually physically look at it anymore. And it will bother me up every day until that thing falls
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a but I think that think about it even from the idea of like that a film festival printing up their programs, right? So there's they're doing layouts like a magazine would on a lot of stuff like that. So if you're putting in assets that are counter to what they are usually slotting in for everything else, it's going to make your work you're going to have to make them work harder, which is not probably going to be appreciated. Now, if you're doing it as a means of like, oh, this is my marketing method of standing out, there are better ways to do that are going to not piss off as many people.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's but no, that's a really no, that's a very good point. A point well made on that. I absolutely agree. Having posters and all that, and you're right. There's a big expense with that. Like big posters are not cheap. I mean, you're looking at like
Yeah.
what $50 a poster or something like that. But get some poster, some of that foam board, get it
Yeah.
mounted. It will last
Yeah.
longer.
It will. Absolutely. No, it will. And also another thing why I like to come on board in the early stages is because sometimes filmmakers don't always have a still photographer on set.
Yeah.
So it's really important because sometimes screenshots can be a bit grainy and not the best. So having a still photographer during the film production is a lifesaver.
Yeah.
So we were just having the quality pictures that you need for posters and for your branding and social media.
Yep.
All of that is part of the bigger picture. I mean, sometimes you're fine to get away with screenshots sometimes, but they're never quite the same as
No.
stills. As stills, they're very different things and not the same. They're similar but not the same.
Yeah.
Stills are always preferred.
And also, it's a good opportunity to get your cast together and be like, hey, we're going to take some promotional shots, or
Yeah.
we're going to, let's do some, this will be for the DVD cover, it gives an opportunity to play, it takes people out of the work aspect of it for a minute, giving them something a little bit different. But also, yeah, the more assets you can acquire from the promotional stuff down the line, because a festival run that's a year of your life or longer. I mean, it's
Yes.
not a one and done like, okay, well, we blew all the things that we had for this premiere and then we're done. It's if you're in it for the long tail, the long haul of that year, I mean, yeah, you're going out there for a season, and that's a while. So you need to have
Exactly.
more things to feed the machine, so to speak.
Exactly. No, spot on. So you're right. It can be up for sure. It can be up to 2 years sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's, you need to have your DCP files. Sometimes you might have to send a physical DCP.
Hmm.
So that too, got to factor into little things like that. It's just to get prepared in the beginning and to always maybe raise more funds than what you think you might need. So you got that, reserve, shall we say, the reserve pot.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it about the film industry that and working within it that excites you to keep doing it? And because I have to imagine you run into very similar things that I do when you talk to filmmakers, where it's a lot of the same problems that never tend to get solved. They
Yeah.
might get band-aided, and but they never really get solved for like a long-term thing. And I find that and maybe this is just a me thing, I don't think so, but maybe. I get frustrated over the years, to the point where I'm just, there are days I just go, I can't believe I'm having the same conversations now that I'm having when we first started. And so it can get a little rough that way. What keeps you in the game? What keeps you excited? What is the thing that keeps your your mental health clear for continuing to do this?
I think I wake up each morning with excitement. Excited to see which films of mine have had notifications come in that got into festivals, awards won, and nominations, all that kind of thing is fantastic. But also what keeps me going is just learning new things about film festivals, discovering more festivals for my clients, and just helping them get their films seen. It really is, it's more than say just being a consultant and a service. It's actually more, I think it's a bit of a healing going on. I
Okay.
know that sounds weird, but healing as in like, the film has not been seen, it's just on a shelf, and no festivals have come in for it yet, and all that kind of narrative.
Hmm.
But then I was like, when I come in, I can just like take it and then look after it and get it seen and appreciated and maybe even award winning. So that keeps me going, is, like getting the film and getting it finished and taking it out there is just really exciting and like a magical process, actually. That's why I couldn't be a producer because I'm not that keen on, say, being in the moment, seeing it filmed. I mean, that's nice, but I like just to like be the one that gets it seen out there.
Hmm.
That's my area of expertise. I can produce, I've done it, but my passion and what I'm the best at is getting it seen in festivals and knowing who's going to want it.
I can understand that, and my take is kind of similar. My situation is always if I can help a filmmaker, a first time filmmaker, excel into making a second film, to me that's a win.
Yeah,
And because so many filmmakers don't, they exhaust their resources or their energy or whatever, that thing that was in the where life takes over. Certain things happen where like that, that thing they wanted so bad just was not the thing that they were able to continue doing. So when
yeah,
I see someone able to do that, that's what makes me happy and what takes me out of that funk of like, okay, that the my frustration is short lived in that
yes,
regard,
yeah,
because it's an interesting thing. We do see a lot of, it's an industry of a lot of the one group of people going doom and gloom. Independent film is dead. Theatrical distribution is non-existent, and no one's buying anything, and strikes and all of this. And then you see like first-time filmmaker wins, the top prize at X whatever festival or whatever, or you see these really good stories that hit at a time where they needed to those are the stories that need to be told now
yeah.
and stuff like that. And that's stuff that really keeps me going. um that said, like the festival circuit is not for the faint of heart. um uh
Nope.
how many I'll start the first question and I'll lead it into a second. How many festivals a year do you think you personally attend?
Oh, it's probably it could be like two or three a month. So I suppose if you say three at the most, because I go to local ones here in
Wow,
Dallas and outside of Dallas. So, like 3 times 12 is going to be a hell of a lot of festivals.
that's a
So
lot.
that's a hell of a lot, yes. And that's like being there physically present. So yeah, it's quite a bit. And there's a lot of them, but sometimes it can be like maybe attending for a day to a local one or something. But
Yeah.
yeah, quite a
Now,
bit.
and just so yeah, for my own clarification, but also for people out there who are like, you may want to engage in your services, what is the difference between what you provide and also a publicist? Or do you kind of play in kind of both roles a little bit?
So I'm not a publicist. The way that we
Right.
differ is this. So a publicist will be a person who has got lots of contacts in the world of the press and the media.
Hmm.
So they'll do a press release and distribute that to journalists, magazines, newspapers, TV. They get you booked in for television. They get you, like write-ups, reviews, all that kind of thing, to help strengthen the brand and raise awareness of the film. Now, I'm different because I work in the world of distribution,
Okay.
and my job is to get your film seen theatrically in a theater, which is part of a film festival. So
Gotcha.
there is a difference. I do, though, do work with publicists when there's a film of mine who has on board a PR manager because they want to get publicity when they're at the festival and to work around that.
Right.
So, for example, one of my clients has a really good short called The Life of Riley,
Hmm.
and it screened at the Chandler Film Festival a few weeks ago. And she attended, and then she did a her publicist got her some reviews in some local Arizona media outlets, and she was on a news TV channel in Arizona, like the local one, promoting the film and the festival. And that's not through me, that was from the publicist, because that's her area of expertise. My expertise was getting a film in the festival and other ones that she's been at around the world. So we can work in harmony, but it's very different. So I'm in a nutshell, a distribution, getting your film seen in festivals, and a publicist gets newspaper, magazine, all that kind of, and an interview content to
Mhm.
help raise awareness of the film.
Now, one of the, and this is the question I was going to lead into, one of the big things of film festivals is, it's ostensibly a contest. So there are
Yeah.
going to be people who are accepted, there are going to be people who are not accepted, there are going to be winners who win awards and laurels and all this, and there are going to be people who do not win. I don't necessarily want to call them losers, they're just not winners.
Yeah.
Because I think also, in terms of partaking, that's a win for me. I think anyone getting an opportunity to watch your movie, whether or not you win an award for it, I think is good. I think winning awards is nice, but
Yes.
and if it's your goal, fine, like totally go for that. But sometimes you don't win. How
Yeah.
do you work with filmmakers to navigate the the toll that a lot of no's can take on them? Like, how do you approach them and say, like, look, this wasn't the win this time?
Yeah. So when it comes to say winning awards, I always say to clients of mine is to never assume because it can go either way. With a jury, it might be say you think, oh, my film's an obvious winner.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that the film that won just speaks to a different demographic that could be missing from your film, or if it just resonates with them differently because they engage with differently.
Mm-hmm.
People watch films in very different ways. It's all about perception. So to remember to not assume or expect that you're going to win because your film is very good, because other films that you're competing against have all different qualities. That's like a very eclectic mix. So to remember to remain neutral and remove all attachment to that win and just go in there and enjoy it is the key thing. The other thing I tell them when it comes to rejections from festivals is to first of all detach emotionally. This is a product. It's not a film anymore. It's a finished product,
Yeah.
and this is going to be perceived and evaluated differently by people who work in sales, distribution, film festivals, the press, very different ways. Look at it, how they can make money, how they can get an audience, how they can get it an angle for press. And it
Mm-hmm.
might not be what you expect, but remember now it's a finished product. When you were making it, it was a film, it was the passion project, it was whatever it was going to be. That was making it. That's the process. It's now a finished product and it's going to be very different. So to detach emotionally is important right now because people might not like this product or they might look at it differently to
Mm-hmm.
the way that you would expect. So it's very important to remain neutral and stand back.
Yeah.
Now, if we get a lot of no's, of rejections, it could be we're just waiting now for one to break. Or if the pattern is showing us that it's not getting into, say, general festivals which are not short film specific, let's look at another layer to the strategy. If it's getting into more festivals which are horror film festivals, but not so much the general ones, then the home to really target on, to put more money into, we want genre festivals of a high quality, the same ones that we got into. So it's having to look at it and think, right, how can we learn from this no? This is actually a positive thing. We're getting these no's because we can actually
You're
now
getting data.
pivot.
You're
And then, yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So we can then figure out just the best route. We don't normally get that because normally when I do my strategies, I always give lots of layers. So we have those angles covered. But sometimes people do like the general bigger ones because they want to get that break. But it doesn't always work that way because a lot of those general festivals don't have a lot of room for short programs. Again, they're all different. So you have to just like, know the lay of the land before doing that. But there's a craft behind it. Behind the nose and rejection lies some really good advice.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean it's really interesting because the idea of turning no, sometimes they're turning no's into yeses is a thing that happens, but turning no's into data to something positive in that way I think is a really good way to look at it. And so many of these movies are so personal to a lot of
Yeah.
filmmakers because it might be based on something they went through in their life, if they scripted it in there, or it might be that they're very attached to the characters. It might be that, like, their whole financial future because they mortgaged a house or something like that to make this happen. I feel like emotions are a very large part of filmmaking and the experience of that, and also what you're hoping to elicit from the audience hopefully is an emotional response. And so I have to imagine it could be very difficult to keep the emotions out of it. And you're absolutely right. I had that conversation. I can't remember specifically who I was interviewing, but I was talking to someone for my book, and they were like, "This is a product with a shelf life," and it's almost a bad word to say that, like to some filmmakers who like, I make art, and I'm like, they hang art in galleries and they buy and sell that stuff all the time. So like, yes, and like, maybe
Yeah.
it's not an either or thing. Like, it can be both a product or commodity and art, so and I think that goes along, with a little bit of what, some of those questions in the education for filmmakers that they need to kind of prepare themselves for when entering into this industry, which is an industry like any other. I mean, there are nuances to it. So one of the things that I'm gonna, before I get into your ebook, because you do have an ebook out, film festivals and looking after your mental health, because we're talking a little bit about that, and so one of the things I have, that when I was prepping, questions and stuff, and actually I'm assuming it was your publicist or one of your folks sent me this nice
Yep.
little book of things of like, here's some things you can speak on, and I actually like that. More people should do that.
Exactly.
But one of the things I really liked, because it's something I've been in this industry for a long time, but this still happens to me. I'm human. Is you talk a little bit about imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
and it's like, I think that there are those filmmakers out there, and I've seen them on Twitter or whatever we're calling it now, and other social media. They'll talk about like, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. When will I be good enough? When will I have, when can I call myself a filmmaker? When can I call, myself a professional XYZ, whatever this is? And I run into that myself sometimes, where I even say like, I know I'm not this person, but when will I at least be recognized by something? And how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that as another colleague in the industry? I mean, I think that this is a lot of an industry of you have to have so much confidence in what you're doing and in yourself, and that, and your conviction of, um, that what you're telling people is correct, and that your value to what you're, especially if you're charging them for something, like, your value to that is something. Like, how do you navigate that, and how do you navigate that with your clients?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because one of the things that I say to my clients is to remember that there is no failure, only feedback. So when we submit to festivals and say it's like a little bit of a harder sell,
Mm-hmm.
remember it's quality feedback here. It's not saying you failed or that you're not good enough, that you shouldn't be a director. It's saying it's a different home to place the film in and to still get recognition. So I had a client who was aiming very high before she came to work with me. And it was a good short, and there was a lot of good things in it. And it was a very good human rights theme short, and a women director, women star, really good performance from the lead. There's a lot of good things in it. And she was aiming very high. And I said, look, we need to just go, not don't think of it as like going down, just got to take a different approach because we're aiming very, very high.
Mm-hmm.
We just need to go different type of tier and type of festival that is still really good and still hard to get into, like not going to be that simple. But just take the different, like a different reroute so we can get the results. And at first she was like, oh, I don't know about that because I'm really just hoping for a bigger one so I can prove to my family that by taking this risk and doing something they didn't want me to do, that I'm good at it. So we can achieve that goal. If I know that's not a very healthy goal, I said to her, but you can still achieve that by getting into festivals on this list. You know, some of these are BAFTA qualified, BIFA qualified,
Yep.
no Oscar qualified, but they're very well known. And your parents might even know of some of these festivals, the ones that are local to you in Atlanta. And then
Yep.
she said, oh, okay. So I said, look, we also what you need to do is bring in a few festivals because you're a black female filmmaker, is to bring in some of these festivals which are celebrating black artists like yourself. And there's a couple which are big ones that are Oscar qualified. And it got into Bronze Lens, which is an Oscar qualified
Mm-hmm.
festival. And I said, look, you've got it now, but you haven't got, it's not going to validate you It's just showing it's got the audience here and it's been accepted. It's going to be celebrated. So place an emphasis, I always think, on the celebration aspect.
Yeah.
Is that when you get into any good festival, and everything, obviously, everything like I recommend choose is of a good quality, a very strong quality, is then enjoy it. And
Yeah.
like, if you're not like, I've done it, I'm back, I proved it, that's not the right energy. It's just purely like, I'm in, we can now have a celebration and meet some new filmmakers,
Yeah.
connect, and enjoy the film and the other films around you, support each other. That's what the energy should be.
I mean, it's right there in the term, right? Festival,
Yeah,
festivity.
yeah,
It
exactly.
is a celebration of your achievement of making a film and showing it to people proudly, and I think that is no, I agree with that. And again, it's taking a different approach of pivoting to other ideas that might they might not think about, because I think that the filmmakers do get stuck in that if I don't get in these top 10 festivals, then it's a failure. And it's like, well, manage your expectations here. And I think that that's the next probably the next question I have on that, which is just how do you know how do you help manage filmmakers expectations when they're a little bit more stubborn about what they want to get out of things?
So the way that I do that is we're very honest. So we're not going to hold back. We are going to pretty much be very clear and give them exactly the right feedback. So I had a filmmaker today who I sent him feedback on the film, and he said, "Well, can you help me get into Tribeca and Tiff?" And I said, "It's not the kind of film that they're looking for."
Yeah.
And it has some very good points here and there. It's got very good performances. Nothing is new or fresh in it, but it's good. And it's a story that people will like at good regional festivals. So that's going to be fine for it. But remember that if you're very attached to this, it's not going to get those results. So it's important to stay grounded and that you will get the audience, but it might not be the festivals that you're perceiving. But it's just very, very important to to accept the film that you've made. And if you get that inkling like, oh, we can maybe try, Tiff, just try and sneak it in, it's not going to work. It's going to tell you how it's, how those festivals program. But secondly, it's a film they're not going to want.
Yeah.
So we're going to be wasting money. And if you are very attached to it, getting loads of no's will not help the mental health. So trust me, I'm giving you the right approach to take. If you have to submit to the big ones because you just want to hear it from them, that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. I totally understand and I have no problem with it. But please do not dismiss the other festivals which are right for it, because that's where you're going to have the more success and the more kind of recognition in your field.
Do you generally give the advice for filmmakers on while they're at these festivals and they're screening? Obviously, you want them to enjoy themselves, enjoy the experience, but remind them, hey, also by the way, this is kind of work. Maybe you want to
Yeah.
work while you're there of building relationships not only with the other filmmakers, but because I feel like that turns into a lot of like we're all just passing the buck along the same hat all the time. Like we're passing around the same, like that happens to I feel like with filmmakers and crowdfunding, which is
Yeah.
like we're all just putting the same $50 around each other all the time instead of reaching out further to whether it's audience members or potential audience members, or in the case of film festivals, like make inroads, if you want to call it that, with the festival programmers, the director, the volunteers are great people. They're great people anyway because they're usually doing a lot of hard work for free. I always tout festival volunteers, but those are the people that first of all, if they tend to either stay at a festival forever or they tend to hop festivals. So you want people to know
Yes.
you around the festival circuit. That's kind of a thing. Like if a filmmaker like the one you just mentioned, like, oh, you want to get into TIFF, you're a first time filmmaker and no one knows you or your product yet, that's a tough sell. But if this is like your third film and like three people who are now at TIFF or they're at Tribeca or something like that, and you could have a conversation with one of them, even if it's to get your fee waived, you know what I mean? Like it's something, it's at
Exactly.
least someone who can vouch for you that is, says, oh, they're a known quantity here now, I mean,
Yes.
I think that's important. Is that, would you say that that is also kind of goes along with a little bit of that strategy, not just the strategy of like how do I get in, but what do I do once I'm there?
Yes. So it's being realistic on all fronts.
Yeah.
Getting to know people helps, but it's also important the energy isn't of desperation or, where's my next project? Where's my distribute? Having that energy is that you're going to miss things that could be really good for you because you're too focused on one thing. So it's really important to go in there open-minded and then put out your intentions, what you want, but just go out there and be very like, open to whatever comes your way and not to dismiss it, but just to take it and be like, right, well, let's see where it goes and go on the journey. Because sometimes you think, I'm going to write, I need to meet this kind of person. And you meet someone else who actually becomes a much better content than you ever expected because it comes out of nowhere and it's a wonderful feeling. So yes, so helping the filmmaker, really get the most of their screenings and to get out the most from a festival is what I do advise all the time, because there's ways you have to do that for each kind of festival. Every festival is kind of different. So, for example, Dance with Films is very different to say going to Sundance. They're both very, very good. Just different ways of like moving the festival. But once you know what to do and how to prepare, you're going to be absolutely fine and make the most out of it.
Yeah, and one of the statistics that came out of Sundance this year was that, like, I think there was one film that was accepted into Sundance that didn't have any actual contacts within either Sundance or didn't have any alums that either worked on on previous films from previous festivals or actors or anything like
Yeah.
that, which is a really startling statistic. But it does go to show, like, if you want to be a Sundance film, like, you probably are in your best interest to at least have, like, your DP be someone who shot something that was a Sundance film at one point,
Yeah.
and you'll get what you pay for at that point. But I think, yeah, I think that those are, again, it goes over to just like you're gathering data. That's a good data point to have. That it may not always be the case because festivals change strategy every year themselves because articles like that will come out and or statistics like that will come out and they'll go, oh, we don't want to get called out for that again, so we're gonna have a whole
Yeah.
new initiative next year. But
Exactly.
it's a good starting spot, of
Yeah.
like, okay, understand that this is how things are done, so let's work within, know what, if you know what the game is, you can play by the rules, or
Exactly.
you can change the rules or manipulate
Exactly.
around that. Anyway,
Exactly.
I know that I'm doing a lot of rambling now. But tell me about your book, your ebook. So film festivals and looking after your mental health.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
So that is my latest ebook, and that came out about sorry that all came out of into fruition, and how it all came together was just seeing a pattern with filmmakers in terms of how they responded to rejection letters
Mm-hmm.
and the fear it invoked and the stress and anxiety. And I thought, right, we need to maybe put together a book in terms of like how to approach the rejection letter. So it gives you this little toolbox in terms of how to manage rejection and see it positively. So the book covers several different topics. And the first one it does is it involves emotional freedom technique, which is called EFT, where you just tap on certain points of the body to then stay grounded and process the emotion of disappointment and rejection.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also meditation, there's grief writing, and there is another part about a book called by Don Miguel Ruiz called The Four Agreements,
Mm-hmm.
which teaches you how not to take rejection personally, because that's a big thing. So I kind of at the beginning explain what a rejection could mean and how to see it as positive. I think what I've identified is what makes a lot of filmmakers very stressed when they get rejections because they don't know why. It's not, for example, like an explanation saying, right, your film, name of the film was really good. There were some parts here and there that didn't quite gel, and this, that, and the other. And that ultimately it meant getting a no. Because you don't know the reasons why the film didn't get selected. It leads to stress because it's like, is it not good enough? Am I not good enough? And do they not like my vision? Do they not like me? Is it my dream gone? All these things come up, all these like imagine narratives. You don't know. A lot of
Right.
the time, it's because not because they didn't like it, because there's not enough room in the program. It doesn't quite fit. Or they love it, but it's like not going to work in a certain theme. Or there's a film that's similar, so it's having to just, toss a coin, heads or tails. There's many different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And because they're not told, then that's what can really induce the stress and the anxiety. and why it becomes a very intense and stressful process. So I give the reasons why it might be rejected, and then explain why it's a good thing sometimes because it helps you like figure out your strategy more,
Hmm.
and then give them the toolbox of those techniques to draw upon if it gets too much.
I mean, that's rejection, especially by form letter, is one of the most harrowing things to open. It's just because you're
Yes.
absolutely right. I think a lot of people thrive on the why. I kind of. My approach to that is a little more like, well, didn't get that one. Next,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say it doesn't irk me. Of course it does, but yeah, the why is like why because they said no. That's why. But you're absolutely right. Like sometimes it's I find this to be a lot with shorts. Is like a lot of people tell you shorts try to keep them within a specific
Yeah.
time frame because they'll be more likely to be more commonly accepted because of certain things, and some people either know that or ignore that, and or they don't know that or they ignore that rather. And they get a rejection and then they go, well, why? And it's like, well, because you made a 25-minute short and they're looking for shorts that are 12 minutes, or
Yeah.
less or something like that. But you're right. Yeah. The idea of like just being not enough space,
Yeah.
it's a
Is
thing.
is is a big thing. Also when it comes to length, the golden rule is that your film needs to be the length it needs to be.
Hmm.
And if that is 25 minutes, then so be it. It's any short film that's a longer short film will always be a little bit tougher to program,
Hmm.
but it's not impossible. But if it needs to be 60 minutes and it's 25, then that's going to be hard to program because
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be that length. Festival programmers can always tell if the film is too long. And they know that through if it's had a bad edit or needs a re-edit or the script's like repeats itself and doesn't develop the characters. All those things they can spot from a mile off because they're trained so well because they see so many films.
Yep.
So
I'm on the
complete
jury for two festivals right now, and I'm
right.
watching many, many films. I
See?
watched 26 shorts last Saturday, and
Wow. Oh my
just because
God.
I wanted to do my job is really what it came down to, because I have other stuff to do. But I watched 26 different movies, and you're absolutely right. Like the idea of being very judicious with cutting sometimes is you're right. It needs to be what it needs to be to tell the story, but sometimes that story could have been told a little shorter.
Exactly.
But have you ever been in the situation? I have to imagine the amount of filmmakers that you're in contact with. This has to have happened at least once, where you've had to actually say to them, "I don't know if this is ready for prime time yet." Like, in as much as like I realized you did this. This is something you're probably you're proud of, and we want you to succeed. But I don't think that this is a film that is, whether it's because of maybe the sound isn't good, or it's not shot up to the particular standard of what other people are currently doing or something like that. Have you had to kind of turn down people that way, or just be like, I'm going to be very honest with you right now, like this is not the kind of film that I think festivals are kind of going to be interested in right now, like it's just maybe you need to take another whack at this?
Yes. So when we give feedback, we are very constructive. And if we feel it needs to have a re-edit or it needs to be, the sound needs to be cleaned up or something needs tweaking
Mm-hmm.
or it needs to be shorter, whatever, we say it because it's going to help. If it's going to help their festival chances, we want to say it to them. So sometimes I'll say, right, we can work on this, but I think it just needs to be shorter or maybe even sometimes longer,
Mm-hmm.
or the sound needs to be worked on. It's not quite done here and there. So it can be like a case of there's something good in here, but it's not quite there yet, so let's work on getting it to where it needs to be and just do something like changing the edit. Sometimes the films do come away which are, shall we say, like very amateur and not going to be on the festival circuit or be too difficult to place.
Yeah.
So there is that too. So I have to think about that and the expectations of the filmmaker, because sometimes people don't kind of will see that and then they want bigger festivals. So it's important to be again very realistic and honest because you have to give them, that kind of feedback so that in the right alignment with the film
Mm-hmm.
and its strengths and the
have
festival sequence we're looking for.
have you ever taken some of the more experimental filmmakers that are out there that and said to them, you know what, I don't think that the festival circuit's even right for this film, but maybe have you thought about trying to program it into museums or art galleries
Yes.
or those? Yeah.
Yes. Some of those very experimental ones can be a little bit, very acquired taste.
Hmm.
And sometimes they do better at, say, as you say, installation pieces in
That's the
galleries,
word. Yeah.
museums. And also sometimes some films that are very sweet and have the heart in the right place but aren't quite festival level do very well at charity screenings and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And like non-festival screenings, we call them. They're really, really good. So yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Now, as we're getting kind of towards the end, but I wanted to talk about this. So, and one thing is, if you're around the festival circuit enough, we talked earlier about what your favorite film festivals are, and I think I understand what kind of goes into making a film festival successful, from the perspective of a filmmaker, and what you probably see is like that's a good festival, like filmmakers are going to get something out of that. The other side of that, I'm not going to make you actually mention any names, so don't worry about it, but like there are a lot of festivals out there that are borderline scams. They're just,
Yeah.
like yeah, we accept entries and we might even show you in a theater or whatever, but we're not going to do anything. Like that's our bare minimum. Do you look at those? Do you kind of keep like a little list of like, these are the ones who they exist, but they're not going to do anything for you. Like it's a laurel, it's a, you might get an award, but it's, from an industry perspective, it's not going to mean anything. And is that something that you kind of tend to tell filmmakers when they go like, well, what about here? Like, nah, do you kind of mother hen a little bit on that kind of stuff as well?
Yes. So I call that the blacklist.
Yes.
So basically, yeah, it's the blacklist. So I make a note of the ones which, are a bit suspect. And I say to clients, look, I know some people want to just keep getting awards, but these will do nothing for you. But if that's what you want or what your investor wants, then they're there. They have that purpose, but they will not hold any value in the industry. And I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't announce the win on social media because it will not do you any good and won't look very good. That you're
Yeah.
very naive filmmaker, but also doesn't look good for the film. It can damage the film. So just keep that, under the radar.
I know that Film Freeway has recently started kind of cracking down a little bit on that kind of stuff, but for a while,
Yeah.
especially during the pandemic with all the virtual screenings and events and stuff like that, like that was a breeding ground for like all those
Yeah,
scam
it
festivals and
was.
stuff like
Yeah, a
that.
lot of them came up then. Yeah, they've been running for like 2 years during the pandemic. So yeah.
Yeah, and now that they've Film Freeway just got not too long ago acquired by I think it was Backstage, and
Yeah,
so
backstage. Yeah.
even especially with that, it's been a little difficult to get them to focus on like making sure that because here's the thing, there's also that's a revenue generator for them regardless, right? So it's definitely difficult for anyone to turn down what is ostensibly free money. So but I hear they're starting to finally kind of get on the ball
Yeah.
with like they're not really self-policing, but they're allowing a little bit. They're taking a little bit more credence to people reporting those kind of things. So that's good to know. Just for you filmmakers out there that are, worried that where's the money going, where blah blah blah. There are people looking out there for you. There are.
Yes,
You are
there
not
are for
alone in
sure.
all of this stuff. Like, people are not just out there to take your money. There are people there that want to see you succeed, and and I'm talking to one right now. So I want to thank you for coming on the show. Did you have anything? This is now your time. Plug whatever you want. Tell everyone where they can find you. If this were a show that was good, like Hot Ones, I'd be like, the cameras are there, there, and there. No, you're just in a box. But go ahead.
Yeah, so I'd love for people to follow me on Instagram, which is, I'll spell it for you. It's RebekahFilmDr. That's Rebecca Film Doctor, Instagram. And my website is thefilmfestivaldoctor.com. Everything's on there. You've got like access to my shop page. You can get some free ebooks on there,
Mhm.
including the latest one. You can also see more about my services, the blogs on there. You can also on my website find out more about me and my team and where we come from and what we've done. And the Instagram is a great place for daily updates every day in the festival world and what we're up to and my clients. So we'd love to have you as part of my tribe.
Absolutely, and that's also where you get that you gotta have the step and repeat
Yep.
photo.
Yep.
You definitely have to have that.
Absolutely.
So I want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank everyone who watched tonight as well out there in the chat world. I know sometimes it can be quiet, but that's okay. That means they're paying attention. Um, so thank you again, and I would say everyone next week we have I believe I said Amy Vorpal is on the show next week. You might know her from Draw Dropout. You might know her from her online video series she's been doing called Be Horny on Maine, which is going to be interesting, or is interesting, with watching her interviews there. And then the week after that, I believe we have comedian Laurie Kilmartin is going to be on the show. She has a new stand-up special. It's on YouTube right now. You can rent and buy that, as well as she'll be talking about that. It'll be awesome. And then I'm off for that. Where am I heading? South Georgia, the South Georgia Film Festival, folks. So
Nice.
I'll be doing that there, and then hopefully that'll be the first stop on many stops on my book tour, and we'll talk more about that. Thank you again, Dr. Rebekah Louisa Smith, for coming on the show, and we'll see you all next week. Have a good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.